Welcome back to Unsolicited Life Advice. I'm so glad that you're here. In fact, I'm just glad that I'm here. I've been really sick since about 2 days before Christmas, missed family get-togethers, and have been in and out of urgent care, just trying to get better. I do, for the most part, have my voice back. If I do cough or whatnot, I apologize. But if you would bear with me, I would appreciate it. Well, there we go. And then it has given me a wonderful opportunity to kind of analyze the channel. We're agreeing to kind of split everything up, put Batsplaining in its own channel, Batman Says in its own channel. What does this channel really need? If we're doing life advice explicitly, where do we start? And in wrestling with, and when I say wrestle, I mean like down south, like wrestling with it. I've come to the conclusion that our purpose is really the starting point that we need to build everything off of. Because in reality, your purpose is your reason for existence, but it's also where you derive your motivation from. When you wake up in the morning, it's what energizes you. When you're down and hard on your luck, it's what motivates and encourages you, lifts you up. When you're doing well, it's the thing that pushes you to higher heights. And at the end of the day, it's what gives you the ability to have quality rest. And you can probably see that if we have a purpose that's uninspired, misaligned, or largely non-existent, it's ultimately a recipe for disaster. Because without a properly identified, personalized purpose, that's a mouthful, we lack energy and even struggle achieving quality rest, both of which starve our bodies of necessities. This often leads to greater anxiety and depression and a greater inclination to self-harm and even suicide. Yes, I know that's dark, but it's real. So what is a properly identified, personalized purpose? Let's start with what it isn't first. So purpose cannot be prescribed to you by someone else. For example, the American dream, your parents' hopes for you, family expectations, or even your spouse's expectations. Now, I'm not saying that religion or God does not have a design or a purpose for you, but you're not going to be capable of fulfilling that purpose until you've accepted that purpose as your own. Purpose does not involve other people responding to you in certain ways. Your purpose does not change depending on how your spouse, kids, parents, boss, neighbors behave. Because we can't rely on others to determine our own success. Number 3, purpose is not something that can be achieved at a point in time. Instead, it's a goal that can be aspired to and improved upon daily. Example of this, my purpose is to graduate college versus my purpose is to grow in wisdom and knowledge. College, you can graduate in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on, your degree track, how many times you change your major, change your mind, and maybe even how much fun you're having, right? But wisdom and knowledge is a lifelong pursuit that you endeavor towards and you grow towards daily. Number 4, purpose is not constant. See, our purpose changes throughout our lives, almost like it's a living and breathing thing. It grows, it multiplies, it looks different depending on the season. That even goes as far as like trying to get more sunlight during the winter because there is less, things like that. Number 5, purpose is not singular. Our purpose is not typically just one facet. It's often multi-pronged with varying degrees and can even have a defined hierarchy of importance or an order. Let's dive into what purpose is. So purpose is what makes you tick. Not what makes me tick, not what anyone else. It's you. It's personal. It's very deep. It's based off of your beliefs and who you are as a person. That's part of why it changes over time, because your beliefs change, your growth, you become more affirmed in your beliefs, maybe you change them, etc. As life goes on, you change. And so how do we drill down and understand what those purposes are? Well, we have to ask questions. And so for me, I found that I have a few questions that I've asked myself multiple times over the years that has helped me understand better what my purpose is. And so I'm going to give those questions to you. You may find that some of these questions don't apply as well right now, or maybe they apply better at a point later in time, or maybe they don't apply at all. But you have to ask yourself these questions and kind of figure out what works for you. So the main question we're kind of starting with is, how will I be remembered? Big legacy question. Will it be the things that I did or the way that I lived? And so maybe before we even get to that, will I be remembered is an interesting question to ask. I mean, there's at least one person in your life that will remember you. Now, a better question may be, who will remember me? If you have someone in mind, you can develop the how you want them to remember you. That said, there's really two questions that we kind of branch off of when we get to this how question. There's, what do I want to be remembered for? And there's also, who do I want to be remembered as? These two things are done simultaneously as you're living your life. The problem is you really don't have the ability to focus most of your efforts into both. You have to put an emphasis on one or the other. So let's start with, what do you want to be remembered for? See, this is about what did I do or achieve, and will it be remembered? The who is more your colleagues, historians, scientific or business journals, future generations, and the scope is typically focused on a larger audience. So let me give you an example. I know nothing about Alexander Graham Bell other than the fact that in elementary school, I learned that he invented the telephone. And that's it. Now, I remember that from elementary school, so it stuck. He is remembered for a great accomplishment in inventing the telephone. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that remembers him. He's written in educational textbooks. That's a major accomplishment. But as I said, I don't remember anything else about him. Who do you want to be remembered as? This is me as a person, my character, my heart, my mind, me. The who here is far more intimate. It's a smaller group of people. The scope is infinitesimally small. And as time goes by, the people who remember that become fewer and fewer. It is much easier historically to remember the things that people did than it is to remember the person that they were and the way that they lived their lives. For example, there are people known for caring for others and having a heart for others. That's something that is a quintessential defining factor of who they are, but even they, historically speaking, we know them more about what they did. I'm going to use Jesus of Nazareth as an example. He's known and remembered mostly for the miracles that he did, his virgin birth and his death and resurrection. Now, he did all of those things on behalf of an overwhelming love and heart for people. And we know this because the people who did remember him for the life that he lived and remembered him for who he was, the disciples, by and large, were martyred for him and his cause and because of his death and resurrection. So we know about Jesus because we have the historical facts, and then we know what the people who lived closest to him, who lived in close proximity, what they did with that information. The thing is, with the average person, that doesn't happen. And so when we're looking at these who do you want to be remembered as, we're probably not going to be passing this on to generations, other than maybe he was a good person and he loved people. But the extent to which is hard to pass on. So the people that we live with on a daily basis are the ones who are going to be impacted most. This is your friends, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors, for better or for worse. If you're one of the people that drives into the neighborhood, enters the garage, closes the garage, and that's it, that's what your neighbors are probably going to remember you as. The more life you live with someone, the more sides of you that they see, and therefore they have more things to remember about who you were. Now, I want to harken back to something I said earlier. You're building both the who you live as and the what you were remembered for aspects at the same time, but you can't focus on both. I'm going to give two examples. The first, I'm a heavily career-oriented parent, and I am notching up achievements left and right for how I'm going to be remembered based on the achievements that I made, the what will I be remembered for. I have to realize that if I am rarely home and not able to spend time with my spouse and my kids and my friends, that I am being remembered for that by those people. On the same token, if I maximize the amount of time that I'm spending with my friends and my family and building those relationships, I have to admit that I'm probably going to miss out on some of the achievements that people in, say, Silicon Valley are achieving when they spend 80 to 100, 120 hours in the office every week, sleeping under their desk, etc. So we have to realize we're making a choice here, and you have to ask yourself what truly is most important. All right, so jumping back in, our purpose beckons a daily question or questions that guide us in how to best tackle our day. An example of this is, what do I need to do today to accomplish my purpose to the best of my ability? That question remains the same every single day, but the answer is probably radically different. And by continuing to tackle this, we get to dovetail right into my third point, which is ideally our purpose leaves no room for regrets. Look, if I have done everything in my power every day to achieve my purpose, then even if I die today, I can die without regret, knowing there was nothing more that I could have done. This kind of goes back to the idea of our purpose being more intangible and less tangible. So going back to the Alexander Graham Bell example, see, he wasn't seeking to make the telephone. He didn't know what a telephone was, right? But to improve the telegraph and its ability to communicate over long distances. He would be remembered for his accomplishments, even if the telephone wasn't invented. But the scope and the number of people that do remember his accomplishments would be much less. I, for one, would probably not know who he is. Now, if you're getting the sense that I lean towards being remembered for who I am over what I did, you got me. I believe that the relationships that we have and the people that we interact on a daily basis are the most crucial components of our lives. It's, in my opinion, largely what makes us human. See, as a father and a husband, the way that I live my life, the person that I am, it has a definitive impact on the way my wife parents, the way my kids will parent, and it is the way in which, in this life, I establish something that outlives me. And in doing that, the time and energy investments that I've made in my life and my relationships with them, it pays dividends that no stock or investment can give. Number 4, our purpose takes into consideration our limits. Look, we don't have an infinite amount of time on this earth. In fact, we aren't guaranteed one more moment. Given the time that we have each day, there's only so much that we can fit on our plate. Now, this can be an easy way to create an excuse to avoid things that we should and need to be doing. So don't trick yourself into avoiding those things, but make sure you're being honest with yourself throughout the process. For example, I used to be way more active in my community before I had kids. I started a nonprofit that raised money for homeless shelters. I even took over the operations of a local homeless shelter for a number of years. I simply don't have room on my plate for that right now, especially not with the intensity that I was doing it. I remember at one point I did over 80 9-hour overnight shifts at the homeless shelter on top of the day job I was doing working there. Yes, I was married at the time. It was insanely rough. And my wife even did 15 of those overnight shifts with me. And because she's literally the most amazing woman I've ever met in my entire life. And I'm incredibly blessed. But I digress. You need to be honest with yourself. You can always add to your purpose later. And remember, it's ever changing. So there's freedom in that. All right, lastly, once you've got your purposes written down, we need to analyze the different elements of it. Is there a hierarchy or an order that plays into our specific listed purpose? Because some purposes can't be accomplished until some or all of another have been achieved. Kind of like me trying to solve world hunger by not eating and giving my food away. The end result is I die in a few weeks and very little was accomplished towards my purpose. There is a hierarchy of importance. And so be honest with yourself and line those things up in order. All right, that concludes our discussion on our personalized purpose. In the words of Batman, what are you waiting for? Why have you not started writing out your purpose and began fulfilling it? And then committing to kicking that purpose's butt every single day. Wait, you're still here? You want more? Yeah, I don't do that, but you can talk to the nerd. He might be willing to do that. He talks a lot. In all seriousness, if you want more, I'm actually going to do a separate video that actually goes into what my personal purpose is. Forewarning, purposes are based heavily off of beliefs and understandings that I have about myself. And so I don't expect most, and maybe none of what I'm going to say is going to directly apply to you, but understanding how I came to my purpose and how I view that working in my daily life should give you the insight to be able to apply at least the kind of the pathway in which I got to mine to yours. I'm not including that in this video because I know some of you are ready to go jump on getting your purpose done. Others have no interest in hearing what my purpose is. And so the last thing I want to do is bore you out of your mind. So that said, I'll be putting that out as my next video. Thank you so much for stopping by. And remember, memories are the true currency of life. Please go make memories with your family, your friends, and your loved ones. Because we're not going to be here forever, and so we need to make as many of those memories with the ones that we care about most while we still can. Thank you so much for watching this video and for supporting all of our channel. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. All right, bye for now.